Hi, everyone. Welcome to our call. My name is Lisa Ames, and I am the CMO and operating exec here at Norwest Venture Partners. And in this role, I leverage my 20 plus years of marketing experience to work as an invited guest with our more than 200 active portfolio companies. I help them with marketing strategy, best practices, a lot like we're doing here today, hiring, resource introductions, and anything they need to become more successful faster. And I'm really excited to have recently added to the band. I hired a new marketing operating exec. So now there's two of us, Renee Cohen, who joins us from Lucidworks. And she joined the team about a month ago, and she's here with us today. Renee, do you want to say a quick hello?
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. And great to see so many folks joining for today's topic. And as Lisa mentioned, I'm fairly new to Norwest. I joined about 8 weeks ago, and I was most recently the SVP of marketing at Lucidworks. And I bring about 20 years of experience across enterprise marketing in a range of startups in different stages. And so, as you know, some of y'all have worked very closely with Lisa in the past. And so I'm additional support here to Norwest companies to help you achieve go-to-market success. And so just to give you a quick sense of how I'm supporting some other companies right now, just in my early introductions to some of the companies in the portfolio. One company is preparing to come out of stealth, and so I'm working with them on some launch readiness. Another is resetting some revenue targets, and so I'm working with their marketing leadership to model out some pipeline goals and create some informed decision making around how are they going to adjust some program spend to achieve the new targets. And another kind of timely for today's topic, I've been collaborating with their marketing and RevOps team on lead lifecycle definitions, lead management workflows, and helping to develop some business requirements for reporting dashboards. And so I think that's a very appropriate topic for us to dive into today on today's webinar, and I'll pass it back to you all.
Thanks, Renee, and welcome to the team. Folks on the call in our portfolio, don't be shy. Give us a call. Let's engage you with Renee. She's here to help. And I'm still doing the operating exec work as well. So there's just two of us. And so I also, before we get into it, I also want to make a special welcome to our B2C portfolio companies. A lot of the focus today is going to be on B2B marketing, but the reason I wanted to invite you is I felt that the principles we're discussing today are really applicable across B2B and B2C. So welcome to all of you. And now for the main event, I want to introduce our special guest, Chrissy Saunders. She's the CEO and co-founder of CS2, which is a top-rated B2B tech marketing and growth operations agency. She works with notable clients, including Gong, who's in our portfolio, Schedulo, and Lacework. She also hosts a popular podcast that I listen to, and I hope you guys have heard about it too, called Forward Thinking. And I want to welcome you, Chrissy, and please tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm super excited to be on today. And for those of you who are on the West Coast like me, hopefully we're having coffee together, or if you're on the East Coast, you're having lunch, or outside of that, maybe dinner. But just, grateful to have you join today to learn a bit more. That was a great introduction to myself. I have to say I'm very empathetic to a lot of the folks on the call. I saw that there were some leaders of marketing as well as folks in ops who are joining today. And I've basically lived and breathed operations for over 12 years now. And I've mainly worked in startups or fast growing companies before starting our agency. Most notably, I started my career in marketing operations at Marketo, which was a great experience, as you can imagine, just being in that space. And over time, the space has really changed and grown rapidly. And there's just this need for operations, not only on the marketing side, but how do we support the whole revenue function and support our key stakeholders across marketing, sales, even product, as companies are looking at PLG go-to-market strategies. So we've taken a lot of our experience. We started CS2 7.5 years ago, and really taken all of the findings that we've seen be successful for our clients and build that into our frameworks that we share today to help our clients see growth. Right now, growth is a big, as you know, always the goal. But for us also, as well, as we are in this period thinking about efficiencies and how can we do more with less, but still maintain momentum. And so we'll kind of dive into some of that topic today as well. So super excited. I also have a background in marketing and demand gen. So that's why I said I'm kind of empathetic to everyone on the call. And I definitely love the marketing strategy side and think operations is really the key to supporting that, and then the whole revenue strategy. So yeah, very excited to share our findings. And for those of you who have listened to the podcast, we've done, it's been on since 2019. We've done like hundreds of episodes now. So definitely, if you haven't, check it out. It's just FWD :thinking, and you can find it on all your players.
Awesome. Thank you, Chrissy. So let's go ahead and jump right into our 3 topics. So these are topics that that Chrissy has a lot of a strong point of view on. And I kind of wanted to just do a Q&A with you, Chrissy, because I think that's the best way to get the real insights out, and importantly, to engage the audience. I really love to see everyone just leaning in, asking a lot of questions in the chat, just, speaking out, whatever you're comfortable with. So our 3 topics are, of course, owning the customer journey and experience, creating an analytics framework, and driving operational efficiency, which I know is something top of mind for a lot of our companies and the extended audience on the call today. So if it's okay, Chrissy, I'd love to just jump right in with some of my questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
These are going to reflect what I'm hearing in the portfolio, and Renee as well, working shoulder to shoulder with our companies, and again, invite the audience to jump in. But just kind of level setting here, we're talking about the customer journey, the experience. Why is that important? Like for marketing ops, for sales ops, rev ops, to focus on the customer journey?
Yeah. So I think up until today, I think there has been marketing kind of working on a go-to-market strategy. I think, 10 years ago, that focus was inbound. And then as we got into like 2015, it was ABM, and now it's PLG. And the reality is, like, companies are trying to do all 3 of these at the same time. And at the same time, the buyer journey has changed, right? Like we talk about this a lot. There used to be people that go to trade shows and do this traditional form of buying, but now a lot of the buyer's journey or experience is all happening by themselves, like online and talking to their peers and going to your website when they're ready. And so it's super important that not only do we ensure that all of these, 3 different go-to-market strategies put in place creates a great experience for the prospect and the whole account that isn't confusing. But then at the same time, once we do capture someone's interest, that journey or that experience for that person is really seamless, because that's what's going to improve our conversion rates. And right now, what better time than, if someone's interested, we really need to capitalize on that, right? So I think that at the same time, the teams have kind of worked in silos a bit. You have a team who's working on ABM strategy. You have a team working with product to maybe create a free trial. You have your web team. And so the great thing about RevOps is you also then have access to the sales team, who's usually part of that experience too, right? We're sending emails. We have different tools that we're managing, like a marketing automation platform, a sales engagement platform, your CRM, even other platforms that are, speaking to your prospects. So RevOps is at a place now where they can really be an air traffic controller for that. And there's an opportunity, because no one's really raised their hand to say, hey, well, let's make sure this makes sense. Like there's things that are, combating each other. And then on top of it, let's really focus on improving the experience. A lot of time we focus on bringing in leads or, just more of like our marketing channels, but really we need to focus on how is this going to be the great experience for ensuring that when a prospect is ready to talk to us, the experience is great. And then also the teams don't step over each other. This is a tricky thing to do without someone really owning it, documenting, and then understanding, giving to the team an understanding of what can be improved. How can we make sure that this experience really makes sense and that the teams aren't stepping over each other?
I know, it's so easy to get tangled in the terminology of the day, right? Like
Yeah.
PLP, ABM, right? And like, who knows what acronym is, out in front of us in the next couple of years. And so, I have the same question I think that Lalitha here is asking, is like, how do you knit all this together? Especially if you take into account that certainly a lot of our companies are, really lean on their marketing staff. Maybe they haven't hired an ops person yet. And they start hearing acronyms like PLG and ABM, and they think, oh, I have to react to that. I have to answer to that. I've got to invest in solutions. And yet I'm just, a team of one. How do you, stitch all that together is, I think is, Lalitha's key question.
Well, I think one thing that we're going to say a lot, or what I'm going to say a lot in what we do for our clients, is really try to audit and document what's currently happening today. And a lot of what you find will center around kind of the key principles of ops. So it's like people, process, and technology. What tools do we have that are interacting with our prospects? And so kind of, you might need to even pull in another one or two stakeholders. If it's a RevOps team, you have a sales ops person, their CRM. You might be the marketing ops person who really owns your marketing automation platform. And then it could also be, a sales enablement person who owns like a sales engagement platform. That platform is owned by various people, but so it might be pulling in, but really documenting, okay, what are all the systems or tools that are, engaging with our prospects? And then trying to map through, okay, what's actually happening? So this might actually be doing some like sleuthing, like we call it kind of like secret shopping, kind of go through the process yourself. See what happens. Take a target account lead who's part of an ABM program, document what happens there. And you might actually uncover that there's cases where things are happening that you didn't expect. So I'll give an example from one of our clients. And actually I can share something if I'm able to share my screen,
Sure.
but
You bet. We love it.
Okay. So documentation is kind of what I'm talking about, but
yeah, I'm a huge fan of documentation. And I find in my experience as an operator is that it's often the last thing you want to do because you're like, oh, I got to get stuff done. I got to get through the day. I have, I'm a hamster on a wheel. I've got a fire to fight. I can't be bothered with documentation. But yet I have found time and time again, when I invest in that, you're exactly right. That's when you start to uncover where the holes are. And, oh, I didn't even know that process was happening. That's a bad customer experience.
Totally. It's just eye-opening, right? So, and I think getting things, I wrote a LinkedIn post and I was like, when in doubt, map it out, right? Like if you're really struggling to figure out what's happening, just start something like this. So this we built for the client just in a tool called Whimsical, and which I love. If anyone's looking for like a Visio kind of tool, it's great and has a lot of great templates. There's also tools like Miro and things like that, Lucid chart and so forth. So you can see that there are, we kind of mapped it out by streams from who's reaching out to the prospect. In this case, this is going to seem like very not make sense to you all, but I just want to give you kind of sense of this was a journey for someone just coming through a free trial. Okay. There's a lot happening here, right? Like from Marketo launches, they get added into a nurture. They're starting to get a webinar invite. They're still part of a nurture. And then a sign up kind of happens and then an actual sign up. So they're interested, they signed up for the trial, and then you can continue to see a lot of emails being sent. And then these blue emails, these are just, emails being sent out from the same system, but for the actual trial. And then at the same time, someone on the SDR side is reaching out to them because they did a trial. There's also another team that reaches out to people that come through trials to make sure their onboarding experience is great. And then they have also a launch team that just sends them an email to make sure there's a launch. And so there's so many communication streams happening here. And actually what they realized when they saw is like, oh, wow, a lot of this is competing with each other. We're sending launch emails. We're sending emails about their account. We're sending nurture emails. We're sending at the same time webinar invites that had nothing to do with their actual, C4C trial or just, and then so we said, okay, let's see how we can maybe trim this down. There's a lot going on here, right? So in the purple, we just suggested, remove certain emails, ensure that there's not a lot of overlap. And so this is where we said, okay, let's do a proposed experience. So I briefly went through this, so it's not as descriptive. It would take a whole hour to go through it, but this is a good example of documentation, right? Just mapping out what's happening. It's not going to be perfect, but mapping out what's happening for a buyer journey or experience, and then seeing where can there be improvements. And then also where can you set rules of engagement? When does the SDR reach out? When does another team reach out? And RevOps is great for doing this because they have access to all those teams. So they can really train and enable the teams and communicate, okay, these are our rules of engagement. This is when you should reach out to this person, and this is when the tools should. So being that kind of air traffic controller really starts with first figuring out where are the areas of opportunity for change.
Awesome. Awesome. As I think about the people on the call here, and I work with a lot of them, it's like, they want to know, like, what can I do today? Like, how is my behavior going to change after I leave this webinar so that my organization is going to benefit tomorrow? Can you give folks any tips, like, who might be sitting here thinking, well, gosh, like that documentation looks really great, but how is this going to help me tomorrow, and how might it shift? Like, how might it help me overcome some of the challenges I'm having in the organization in a really tactical way so that it becomes a win right away?
Yeah, well, I think one thing is when you have the chance here to raise your hand to be an owner for something so important like the customer journey, you really can start to build relationships with your key stakeholders. And I will say, actually doing this at a smaller team or a smaller size can almost be easier, right? You can start to figure out, well, one, your customer journey might be, less involved, there may be less teams, but you can really have your team centered as being a strategic resource, right? Not only are you saying, okay, we're going to implement these strategies that you're just handing over. No, we're going to tell you how can you optimize them? How can you then fit into the overall strategy that they're not maybe thinking about when they're creating it? So I think to start, like if you're just even going to start, just mapping it out and then meeting with your key stakeholders who are adding to that customer experience, building the relationship to say, to understand what is their strategy, what are they planning to do, and then talking about what's currently in place. But I think it seems like a lot at first, but actually when you're trying, it's your job to add on to the customer journey. It's your job to operationalize people's strategy. So if you don't do it right, or if you do it in a way, you're going to uncover these problems later. So people are going to say, why is this team reaching out to my leads when they shouldn't be, or, XYZ. So if you can get ahead of that and really document it first and have a system for when people do put in requests that you then really look to, okay, does this make sense? You'll be looked at strategic, not only tactical, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Chrissy, you're taking me back to my Castlight Health days, which is circa 2013. And I hired the best ops person I've ever met. And she's, of course, now moved on to bigger things, but it was her idea to document all of our processes. And so, it was just like a Google Doc, and it was pretty informal. It wasn't even as beautiful as the charts you just showed, but it was kind of what was the rationale? What's the current state? What was the rationale for some of these decisions that we made, so that we could always go back, even field changes, right? It's like, well, we changed this field and here was why we did it, so that we had that historical record. And then once you make that initial investment of documenting it, it becomes easier to maintain it, because then you're just adding
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, this one thing changed, or this process has been revised. And I agree, I've lived it myself and seen the benefit of that documentation.
Totally. I will say, like, if these are smaller teams, like a lot of the things I'm talking about today may seem like, oh, it's too early for that. It's actually not,
No, it's not.
probably.
You're
Like,
right. You're right. Because we were a team of two when we did this
Yeah.
back at Castlight, and it was all her idea. And I learned a lot in watching her. And it really helped us to scale because we had that foundation in place on the front end.
Yeah, totally. Totally agree.
So let's talk a little bit about my favorite topic. So number 2 on our list, creating an analytics framework. And I think I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day, and I think it was Charlie who said, like, data is the love language that unifies teams and certainly connects marketing efforts, to the execs and the things that they care about. So let's dig in here on analytics. Like, you talking about creating a framework for analytics. Like, what is that? Tell us what that means.
Yeah. So really creating an analytics framework, and RevOps or sales ops and marketing ops working together, or even just marketing ops, are positioned to do this really well for our marketing team. But we define this as just creating a canonical, which is just a big word to say, shared set of reports that everyone can use to answer pretty much like 80% of their questions. So these reports can be like dashboards in Salesforce, or it can be, depending on the team that you're working with or supporting, if it's just marketing, it can be, within another tool, say like HubSpot dashboarding if you're very early, or it could be even in a spreadsheet. I don't like saying that, but there could be cases where, hey, you want to build some reports and you just want to give people the insights. It could be in a Google Doc that you're, or a spreadsheet that you're updating. But really, for most parts, people are going to be building this within dashboards in their CRM. And I think the key thing here of like why it's important, I love that you said like the shared, the love language, the shared. It's really, you want to ensure that you have everyone singing from the same hymn sheet, right? Everyone, I don't know, maybe raise your hand if you've been in an org where everyone in like marketing or sales are all using different reports, right? Me. Or
and everyone thinks
they,
their report is the best, and then
Right.
the data never matches, and then you wonder why, there's no alignment.
Yeah. Or how many folks just felt like they didn't know where they should go to get their insights? Probably, right? Or you're
Who has
wondering,
that answer?
So I've been lucky in the case where I didn't have to be in that position very long. It was always when I went into an org and had to change it. But the one of the key things, and actually I will say for early stage, this is a great time too, to just start building a set of dashboards or a set of just reports. It could be one dashboard where marketers feel, one, can get the insights that they need, also feel empowered to get their own insights. So we say that along with a framework or delivering like the reports that they can go to, or dashboards, that you also are providing kind of a data dictionary. What fields are we using? What does this mean? And there's a lot of cool things you can do within even like Salesforce, like a Lightning app page where you can put text on it, or even just some hint text to just so people can understand that, or even support like a supporting document. But it does kind of 3 things. So like I said, singing from the same hymn sheet. It also creates a system where, like I said, the marketers feel empowered. It just limits ad hoc requests. Wow, like what a suck on an ops team, right? Like some people dread end of quarter. Why? Because I'm going to get a ton of reporting requests, and they're going to be from a bunch of different teams, and I'm going to have to reinvent the wheel again. And so a lot of this is to help limit ad hoc requests because you're training people to look to one place to get those insights and then how they can pull them themselves. And then that means you have more time to be strategic and maybe add on more better reporting. And then helps that, like you said, your team be more strategic, and ops should help guide the team on how to pull insights, read data. So this really is ensuring marketing's making better decisions. So
let me let
Yeah.
that sink in for people.
Yeah.
It's so important what you said. One dashboard.
Yeah.
Renee's piling onto this one too. One dashboard. Say it
Yeah.
again. One dashboard across sales and marketing. I know of like every organization I've worked in, we've all walked in with separate reports, and it's like that's where things start to break down.
Yeah. And so totally. So I think if people are like, well, what is, that one dashboard? And this can be a set of dashboards, but if we're thinking about sales and marketing and what they're looking at, and even executives, that's going to be a high level, right? So what's going to be the focus on that? Revenue, right? Like what's key to those teams, looking at that by region, pipeline, how much pipeline do we have? Do we have enough coverage looking into our future quarters? I used to build dashboards when I worked in-house, and I always looked at current quarter pipeline and next quarter pipeline. I want 4x coverage for this quarter. I want 2x coverage for next quarter. And I literally just built gauges just to that. And that was all we looked at. So if we were under for the future quarter, or if we were under for the current quarter, we drilled down and we said, okay, which regions are suffering? Okay, field marketing, what can we do? Let's try and, move these opportunities along. Demand gen, what can we do for next quarter? Let's try and figure out how we can accelerate things so we can build that up a bit more. So it just gets everyone looking at the same data, but then also collaborating, deciding together, what decisions should we do? How should we combat this?
Well, and you said something, a second ago, you said everyone. And I think this ties to a question I have, as well as what Lalitha's asking here is, everyone implies multiple people. And yet, if you're a small organization, he's like, well, there's marketing ops, there's sales ops, there's rev ops. Like, what's the difference between all of these? It's easy to get tangled in the terminology. How do you think about the relationship between these? And more importantly, how do you go about prioritizing those hires? Like if you just had one hire and it's, in most cases, a shared resource, like what is the profile, and like, when do you invest in that, and what do you call it?
Oh, okay.
Is it RevOps? Is it MOps? Is it SOPs? Like,
so I think that, you should hiring MOPS and SOPs separately is a good idea to do at the start. So RevOps per se as an org to me, it's just a term to say alignment, right?
Unifying. It's a unifying force.
Yeah, unifying force. And you don't need to have that with a reporting structure. Like I actually I filmed a podcast yesterday that'll come out in September, and I had two gals, one's the head of SOPs, one's the head of MOPS, and they were so aligned. Like they, shared their roadmaps. They had similar process requests. They worked together. They owned their systems. They were championing each other's systems and process through enablement. And I asked them, like, are you on a RevOps team? They're like, no. And we don't think it needs to be that way. And I will say, like, RevOps teams, I think I'm not saying that they're a bad thing to do, but if you're in an org where you say, like, oh, I don't have RevOps, well, marketing ops and sales ops can still work closely together. And I think both have individual skill sets. A MOPS person is usually focused more on campaigns and data and lead lifecycle, where a sales ops person might be more focused on the CRM and building process to support your sales team, and the opportunity management and so forth. But each of those groups can work really closely with each other, because now it's very rare for those teams to sit in silos. You can't. The systems touch each other. A lot of the process that you build, some of it can be built in one tool for marketing ops. Some of it you might rely on your sales ops counterpart to maybe build an automation or flow. And so it's super important that those teams just stay aligned. And that could be through like weekly meetings and so forth. So if you're at an org where you don't have RevOps, that's fine. And I, for small teams, definitely, if you can invest in hiring at least one MOPS person and one sales ops person to start, especially earlier than you think you need it, I think you'll be set up for success.
And what's the relationship or I guess the order of operations in terms of the hiring of the people and the investment in the tools and the technology?
Yeah. So normally, companies depend, it kind of depends, I would say, but normally we see companies invest in their CRM first because they may start hiring a sales team.
Foundational. Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot you can do there just from, organization, opportunity management and so forth. So normally you see a sales ops person will come in around that time. And then sometimes demand gen folks can almost act like a pseudo marketing ops person, especially nowadays. Digital marketers are so savvy. They can do a lot of what a marketing ops person can do, but that can only scale for so long. I will say I've been in those roles where I was a demand gen person and a marketing ops person and a sales ops person, and it was just too much, right? You just can get burnt out. So over a certain time, it's nice to have just that person who's focused on the operations, and that usually, I would say like series B or C, you'll really feel the pain if you don't have it, unless you're working with like an agency to maybe fill that gap.
Mm-hmm. Is that a viable solution for folks that, have limited headcount? Like, hey, I'm just going to outsource all this because, I got to use my headcount wisely.
Yes, I would say it depends on what agency, I think, and what partner you're looking for. For us, we're able to be successful. And I don't want to just talk about us because I think there's a lot of amazing agencies out there. But for us, we're able to be successful with some clients who maybe don't have an internal MOPS person, or maybe they only have a team of one, but they can tap into our team's like deep skill set. So maybe they need someone with a deep analytics, skill set, or they need someone to help them figure out their big project strategy, like, their scoring or nurture strategy, or a lot of their tool integration, so that they can just handle the day to day, right? Like just bog down and kind of keeping people aligned and training, enabling them. And so we'll kind of almost act like an extension of their team and help them get strategic projects out the door, while at the same time helping them build a roadmap. So that because you don't have to hire 4 people in-house, you can just kind of work with an agency who maybe has the experience of those 4 or 5 people that you technically would want. But one, you have your hiring limitations, but also it's just a really hard role to hire, which I have a lot of content on.
Hire. And you're so right. Like, I think back to my operating experience and how many times I was the demand gen leader who was also the MOPS person, because it was like, well, there was no one else to do it. In fact, when I joined one company, like the first day I joined, they said, oh, we bought Marketo and we haven't stood it up yet. So can you do that? And I was like, what? So I stumbled along and figured things out, but I eventually hired an agency to support me in it, but then also to build lead life cycle, which is so many companies get really far down the field and they haven't done it. And, you get in there and you go, oh, well, that's the reason we can't measure anything, because we haven't had life cycle set up yet. So let's invest in that. And I find that they're all really open to it. And it's almost like there was just no playbook to tell them that that's an investment they should make on the front end.
Totally. I think, and I think you bring up a good point of, before building any analytics framework, I think it's kind of doing an assessment. And one of those key areas we'll always find is like life cycle, right? Like what's missing here? Oh, well, we're not really tracking what's going on within our customer journey or life cycle, but it seems like
we think we're tracking it.
We think we're tracking.
When you look under the hood, it's like, well, no, because none of these fields are marked. If these stages aren't established and you don't have alignment on the stages across sales and marketing, so you're actually not measuring like velocity through the funnel, for example, or conversions through the funnel in a way that's ultimately going to serve you.
Totally, totally. And so for those who feel like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed, like I don't have a lot of resources, just simply tracking those stage entries, through your status and then your date stamping, like that's enough to start with. And then over time, you'll probably start working with your org or even an agency to uncover, okay, maybe there's some more scalable solutions for this, like through a custom object or, other tools out there who track it. But don't be afraid to just start with something that's really going to give you those insights. And it's better to put it in now than later because it's actually easier to take your historical data if you have something rather than nothing. Because what you might find is like, oh, okay, what do you put in a life cycle? And then everyone's like, okay, where's the reporting? And you're like, well, I know I need it to run, for, so
Yeah.
at least having some history that you can look back on, is really useful.
Yeah. And okay, so I want to meander into a topic that I know everybody cares about, and it's related to our analytics discussion, which is attribution. And I know we could do 5 webinars on attribution alone, but there's one thing I want to touch on. I was listening to you did an episode on your podcast of the do's and don'ts of attribution, which I encourage the audience to go back and listen to. It's really good. And you had a special guest, I forget her name, but
yeah, Carrie Picklesheimer.
Carrie,
Yeah.
Carrie. So she was great. What company is she with?
She was with Condurio Consulting. She's actually an independent consultant. She's great. Yeah.
She was great. And one of the things that struck me in that podcast was you're talking about attribution and how it's fundamentally imperfect.
Yes.
Right. It's never going to answer to the nth degree, the question of like, what was the thing that caused this opportunity to happen? And what I loved about the way she spoke about it was she used this football analogy, Tom Brady. And she said, well, I'm going to paraphrase here, but you don't go to Tom Brady and say, what was the one play that led you to win that one of 7 Super Bowls, right? It's a combination of things that happen, that all come together to allow the team to win the Super Bowl, right? It's never just one thing. And yet we have this obsession with finding the one thing. Was it this webinar or this trade show or this, paid ad that caused this to happen? Because if we can figure out the one thing, then we can throw money at that thing and it's going to be like a coin operated machine that gives us all the pipeline we ever dreamed of. Right.
Totally.
And so I guess my question for you on this, because I want to keep this focused because we could talk about attribution for days, is do you think sales leaders have gotten the memo that it is imperfect and it's not going to answer every question, and that we have to look holistically and even use our gut? I think that's what Carrie was saying, to some degree, and our experience to inform where we're going to make future investments. Like, has sales gotten the memo? Because I'm still seeing, there is a little bit, even at an executive level, still this obsession with attribution.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think so. And I think that the problem is with some of the education that's been on attribution in the market. So I will say the leaders of like evangelizing attribution is usually been tech led, right? Like the technologies that help you do that. And it's always, they lean into, okay, figure out what's going to should get credit for your, your revenue, like, show marketing's worth. And it's, those are not the right statements, like that's what so salespeople are sort of thinking, oh, attribution data, that's just marketing trying to take credit for our deals. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Having it like,
I've heard that for 20 years. I've heard that.
And so
attribution was a thing.
Right. Or marketing's trying to get their seat at the table. Yes, we are, but I feel like we have it, but like so I think there's been this hesitancy with sales of where they just think, oh, it's just where the source is, or they don't really understand like marketing is using attribution actually just to figure out how to do better marketing. But I think marketers fall into this gap too. They're like, oh, attribution is my silver bullet to show to the company our worth, to show how we should get credit. And I think people also lean into attribution for them is like, let's split up the credit. We have so many conversations with leaders that are like, hey, we have a 40-40-20 split, 40 sales, 40 marketing, 20 partner, to show who's sourced our opportunities. And then they'll just go and look at the source on the opportunity. Now, that can draw a line in the sand, but that also, if used wrong, can cause people to point fingers at each other, can cause people to work in silos, to cause people to push their initiatives forward, to manipulate data. So,
right. And to overinvest in channels that appear to be working,
right.
but maybe you're not, and Chris Walker talks a lot about this, where it's like, oh, the last thing was the paid ad. So let's pour a lot of gasoline on the paid ads when what's really driving folks to go to that paid ad is your podcast.
Right. So data models like attribution are, imperfect. Rightly so. We make them up, I will say, right? We decide, okay, which attribution model are we going to do? How are we going to track it? Let's use this. So I think you're right. Sales doesn't really understand. So I think there still needs to be education. And I will say for marketers, don't try taking your attribution data to sales. If you're going to do that, say, we're going to invest more or do more of these programs. Don't talk about don't show even your reports. Just say, we've seen that these are driving, faster velocity. These are influencing more opportunities than these programs. So we're going to invest more here. That's all insights you can get from attribution data. We delivered that to a client yesterday and showed them, but you don't actually have to show that data. Because I think the problem, and Carrie mentioned this, and we talked about it, a lot of that data can sometimes sit in Salesforce, which salespeople think as fact, right? They're used to seeing revenue and pipeline. Those are usually like very factual things that you can look to but attribution is, in some ways, like it's more of an art than a science per se. Like we're just trying to say, okay, and like, let's assign an amount of pipeline based on the influence. And we usually suggest an even spread model if you are going to do attribution, because at least then you can decide, okay, what channels are really influencing our opportunities and which ones are not. But you mentioned Chris Walker, and I think for some people are like, okay, I want that one thing. Well, to make your marketing better, it's not great to just focus on one thing. But if you are just trying to also get a sense for how does the market perceive us, like as the thing that was the tipping point, then I love the self-attribution option that Chris talks about. And I'm very close to Chris. And so we talk about it a lot, but that could be on your contact or demo request page, just having a free text field to say, how did you hear about us? Don't make it a pick list because people will choose the first option. But that can actually, and you can actually even build this into your sales calls. Use it as an icebreaker. Sales ask the prospect on a demo call. Yep.
You can, if your salespeople, they're having these conversations anyway. So if you use Gong and you can pull reports from that, then you get the data.
Totally. And you can marry those two together. Because I will say for things like a podcast, even this, like, webinars like these, but, it'll get recorded and shared. And so you may lose out on seeing the insights on that unless you maybe ask.
Well, I love it. It seems so old school, but you know what? Things come full circle, don't they? Just ask them.
Yeah. Focus groups, right? We used to do focus groups like way back in the day, right?
Back in the day, there was some wisdom to that.
Yeah.
And so as we pivot into our last topic, Chrissy, keeping with this attribution theme for just 1 second, thank you for indulging me, because this is something
of course,
so much across the portfolio is, if you're tight on funds, companies are trying to conserve cash and extend runway in these times. Do you need to invest in an attribution solution, or can you do something more homegrown that can get you some of the same answers so that you don't over-rotate on attribution?
I say don't invest in a tool if you're worried about budget. I think the amount of time and money you invest in attribution should correlate to your marketing budget. So if you're spending millions of dollars on your marketing budget, and I mean millions of dollars, there might be a case for then, yes, you need some type of more robust tool to get you that. If you're, if you're trying to be a bit more conservative, you can start small, right? There's the self-reported attribution, like I mentioned, that can be super insightful. There's even just, your simple attribution is what we call it. So just tracking the lead source campaign, tracking a most recent lead source campaign or something through automation. And, based on your UTMs, like your UTM medium and source. And then you can just, track that back. You can stamp it on an opportunity. You can even stamp it to set of fields when they MQL. And that's all something you can build within your own tools. You don't need to invest in anything else. And then Salesforce or other tools like HubSpot have some reporting out of the box, but you can even do influence reporting if you have a great campaign structure. So it won't be perfect because, it'll look at total opportunities and just try and show, okay, what opportunities are being influenced, but it still gives you directional data. And that's all you're looking for, right? What data can we then use to make better decisions and to improve? And so always think it's about improving, not proving, if you want to get that.
Yeah, I think that imperfection theme came through really clearly for me on that podcast episode we're referring to. So I really encourage folks to take a listen to that. Because I think back to my experience with when we first invested in Visible, which is, even back then was a pretty big investment. And we were just using, Salesforce to do attribution. And, it was imperfect, but it was directionally accurate. And then we wanted, more functionality. And I'm like, can't we just build an Apex trigger in Salesforce to do this? I think we can. Or no, we need Visible. We need a proper solution. I'm like, okay. So we spent, whatever, $100K on Visible, and I have nothing against Visible, but I'm just saying, for companies that are trying to conserve, there are other ways around it, because funny enough, we came full circle. This is a Demandbase where we eventually pulled out of Visible for no fault of Visible. It was just, trying to conserve cash. And we went back and built the Apex trigger and got all the same data that we needed. And we compared the before and after, and the directional data carried through in the new environment. So again, nothing against Visible or any other attribution tool, but one of the things I guess, missteps that I see companies make sometimes is that they get very eager about investing in technology because, and certainly this is the case with ABM solutions as well, is then they convince themselves that they're going to check the box that, okay, well, now I'm doing ABM, or now I'm, my data is going to be better because I have Visible, and it's not necessarily the case.
No. Yeah. The technology is not a strategy, right? And a tool will never be successful either unless people are bought into it and also educated. So I say step one, before you even invest in attribution, educate your team on attribution. Just build a simple deck. What is attribution? Go and listen to our podcast, learn, and then take those learnings and do a lunch and learn with your team and let them know, okay, these are the do's and don'ts in attribution. This is what the market's been telling you, but this is actually how you can use the data. And then maybe come to, okay, based on our size, this is the data model we're going to use. And then that's our entryway.
These are the questions we're going to answer about the business through using attribution.
Totally. And just do a four-way into it, which is like a simple version, like you said, it doesn't have to be, let's go all in on a tool first.
I love that. Yeah. That alignment piece that seems to be a consistent theme here when we're talking about ops, the alignment, between sales and marketing, understanding what questions we're trying to answer. And then, also communicating that it is imperfect. Yeah. And we're looking for directional data, and so that we can make smarter investments. This is not about credit. I think people conflate credit. They're trying to measure productivity almost with attribution.
Yeah.
Who's working harder? Is it the sales organization or the marketing organization?
Yeah.
And I see so many companies go down that path, and it's a very dangerous road to take.
Yeah, it doesn't create friends, right, across the team, like with the ones that should be supporting each other, these teams that should be making sure they're everything's invested, right? Like customer journey. You can tell when those teams are not working together, or they have separate goals, or they're pointing fingers, right? Because everyone's just getting their initiative through instead of thinking, hey, let's build an initiative that makes sense across, marketing, SDR, sales, customer success. And so that alignment, like you said, the piece and not getting credit or thinking about productivity, but just more, how can I make better decisions to make you all successful? Because really marketing and sales touch everything, right? It would be really, in maybe a partner pushes something through, but in some cases that person was marketed to. And so we have to get that idea out of our heads that it's just one team that's like trying to drive a deal forward, which seems obvious, but we still see behaviors that prove otherwise.
Still see those behaviors.
Yeah.
So along the same theme here of efficiency, some of our companies may be experiencing rifts or have experienced rifts so far. And as we think about extending runway, conserving cash, like you talked in another podcast about automation, and are there any functions that automation can augment or even replace in terms of people functions, so that if you had to make some tough choices about, which team members that you needed to keep, could you lean into automation to help you in any of those areas?
Yeah. So I will say, like, this is a tricky one because I will, there's people behind headcount and people are losing those jobs, and that's a very sad reality. But there are cases where if that's happened, how can we keep this ship moving forward? So in some ways, if we're talking about people, so when I look at one team is the SDR team, right? So a lot of what the SDR team is doing is following up with leads and getting those qualified and sending over to sales. Now, that can be expensive, right? That's a human headcount that's doing all of that work. And so millions of dollars, if you do the math on the salaries, you'll realize quickly it's an expensive team.
Yeah.
So if you do have to de-invest, and I wouldn't say it replaces the whole team because you're likely going to still need that, but figuring out ways where you can put in process to automate what maybe isn't top priority, and also automate areas where there's just a roadblock in between it. It's not really useful. So right now where we're focusing with clients is focusing on the kind of front end. So when someone does perform like a inbound contact request, or, putting in a meeting booking tool, that can be something like a Chili Piper, Calendly, or so forth. There's some qualification you can even do there. And so then it'll automatically set the time up for the AE. Not only is this a good experience for the prospect, because as you know, you're searching, you have that like free 15 minutes during your lunch to schedule a demo. You then go on to like 3 hours of meetings, and then SDR is trying to call you, and then you play back and forth, and then emails and so forth. And so it's just a better experience, but you can also limit how much time is spent from a human just trying to do that. And then secondly, there's also some cool things you can do around just looking at your leads and thinking about, okay, what's our cream of the crop and what isn't? And you can build some automated sequences out of like a sales engagement platform. You can even do this out of HubSpot or Marketo or whatever you want. You can even be a pseudo SDR if you want to in place. And all of those responses can then be filtered out, or, drive them to a demo or do something. And so it's not that high touch follow-up like you would want for your kind of cream of the crop kind of MQLs or demo requests, or people who are showing high intent. But those people can go to SDR. So you can have your SDRs just focused on the people that matter, while then also having this air cover to make sure that the rest of your leads are getting followed up with. And so that's one place that can definitely be improved. And that can be like on the front end, like I said, or even just through follow-up automation. And then from a productivity productivity standpoint, excuse me, really thinking about like a decentralized model when it comes to creating your campaigns. So if you have a really small marketing ops team, but also you need to get campaigns out the door, this is where I think putting in a model where marketers can be more self-sufficient and create their own programs, but with QA or process in place, like templates, this can also limit how many people you just need to create campaigns, which I would never say decrease headcount from ops. No, but it's the people who maybe you just need on board to send emails out the door. And then this way you can fight for more headcount for more strategic MOPS folks or sales ops folks or so forth. But then also demand marketers sometimes want to be part of that process. They don't want to be so lenient on a team just to get their programs out the door. So I find that right now, that also is like reskilling people. You're kind of teaching them almost to be digital marketers as well. And there's that thirst for maybe those skills too. So that's another place where you can kind of save on some headcount, but then also make people, your people more efficient.
Yeah, these are great reminders of strategies that are available to us as marketers. Well, it looks like we're coming up on the top of the hour, Chrissy, and I just want to thank you again. This has been so insightful, and I really hope our audience takes the opportunity to listen to some of your episodes because they're really informative. They go pretty deep, and I think folks will walk away with some actions and behavior changes they can make immediately. And
Yeah,
thank you
definitely.
again for joining us, Chrissy. And we're going to do a follow-up blog capturing some of the key insights and some video clips of our session today. And then I did want to also, Leah, do we have a slide giving a shout out to a new asset that Renee created in her first 8 weeks here in her role? So it's basically a company launch playbook. And this is going to be a valuable resource that's going to be available to our portfolio companies. Renee's going to introduce it on a pre-recorded webinar that'll be available next month. So with that, I want to close out and thank you all again for joining, and we'll see you here again soon on another webinar.
Yeah, it was great.
Thanks,
Thank you
all.
so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.